One thing I want to jump back to, you mentioned with the kind of the tagline of the YouTube book, how it's replacing TV. But has YouTube now, kind of in 2021, has it almost become TV? I feel like you jump on the trending page on YouTube and there's 20 videos and 18 of them are Tonight Show videos. You know what I mean? So how does TikTok ensure that it doesn't go the way of YouTube and just become overcrowded with traditional celebrities jumping into the space?
It's too late. Will Smith is already on there. Um, Will Smith is the angel of death for social media platforms, as far as I'm concerned. No, like this is the interesting thing is this already happened. Like Will Smith hopped on TikTok in 2019, I think, and immediately did all of these like really high budget, high production value clever, like they're really clever, they're really beautiful videos that he did when he joined, but like they're not TikTok, they're not that kind of raw authentic thing, they're like movie special effects that just happen to be on TikTok. And like now if I look at, or maybe not now actually, I tell a lie, but like 6 months ago when I looked at TikTok's creator marketplace in the UK, which is basically like the storefront for advertisers wanting to do product placement with creators, like the first person that you would see on there in the UK is Gordon Ramsay, and like I cannot think of anyone less interesting to be like a face of TikTok, and yet TikTok put him up there as that. So I think it's the hypothesis in kind of the YouTube book was that YouTube started out as like, we're going to take over TV and we're going to do it. And I told in the YouTube book the story of this guy called Bastian Manintveld, who is a Dutch-born, Spanish-based former TV producer who moved into the MCN space, and now he runs. It's no longer an MCN; it's like a content production studio management company called TubiTube, which buys up like they produce movies now. It's insane. Like he's like Spanish language content creation's god. Um, and I was driving down this highway in Spain with him in his swanky BMW, and he was like, "So, um, I'm going to give back TV its audience because I'm on YouTube and I know how to get that younger audience that TV wants but can't get anymore." And in reality, what happened is that YouTube set out to be something very different to TV, but it actually ended up having to meet TV in the middle, um, both in terms of borrowing its format and its stars, but also in terms of just like the length of the videos and the fact that like I think now most you, well, like not most, but a majority of YouTube viewing happens on TVs and sofas, like in living rooms now, which is fascinating. And TikTok is kind of doing the same thing. TikTok has its Amazon Fire Stick app. It trialed on smart TVs in the UK and France and Germany earlier this year, and then in recent weeks it's rolled that out to the US. Like it's interesting to see how they're doing 3 minute videos as well now.
Yes, I'm curious to get your opinion on those 3-minute videos because I feel like the changes they're making when it comes to that is kind of trying to edge into the space of the other social networks and kind of take some ground from them. But what's made TikTok so different, or what made it so popular, part of the reason is it's been different. And so, how does it ensure it keeps its uniqueness with, but also like tries to take ground from all the other social networks?
So this is the thing. I am equally puzzled. I've written about this a few times, and I don't know. To me, like Vine in its dying days tried to give some creators longer videos as well, and that didn't work. It still died. To me, if you lose that essence of like short snackable content, you run the risk of losing the audience. But TikTok wouldn't do this if they didn't have the data to back it up, and so they evidently do. Like it's fascinating though because the week before, 2 weeks before they officially rolled out 3 minute videos, obviously they trialed it beforehand a lot in A/B testing, but when they kind of had that big reveal last month where they were like, "Hey, everybody's getting 3 minute videos, enjoy," um, a the Japanese arm of their business had given a presentation, which I got a hold of, which was literally based around people don't like videos longer than a minute. People find them stressful. People don't know how to deal with them. People don't pay attention to them. So come to TikTok because we don't do 3 minute videos. We don't do 10-minute videos. We do 1 minute videos or less. And that's what makes us really unique. And then 2 weeks later in the US and Europe and places, they're saying, hey, we're no longer that. We're longer form video, which I find really fascinating. And actually, I was I was just listening in on a presentation that I'm not meant to have access to today as we're recording this, and TikTok were telling advertisers today that you should make your videos 20 seconds long. That's the sweet spot, um, which I found super fascinating because I am like so far into the weeds with this stuff that like what is said as a very flippant remark in a presentation, like 40 minutes into this really dull presentation that they were giving to potential advertisers, um, was suddenly like this big, like, yeah, galaxy brain moment of like the world unlocks because I knew from, again, another bit of documentation that I'm not meant to have. And again, the fun thing is all of this stuff is in the book, so you can learn all about the inside secrets of TikTok, kids. Like a presentation that they would, well, not a presentation, documentation that they would give to advertisers a year ago that said, here's how you make the most engaging content on TikTok was do not make your videos any longer than 11 to 13 seconds. So in that year, and this is maybe why they've done that 3 minute thing. And again, I'm sorry, I'm getting really rambly, but in that year, they've gone from you need to make your videos 11 to 13 seconds, that's the sweet spot, to now you need to make your videos 20 seconds, that's the sweet spot. And I find that fascinating because it means that in that time, they've doubled the attention span. And people know, you know, there's a data point that's been reported previously about people are spending like a movie's length of time on TikTok every day now in the US. Like, that's someone else leaked that deck, which I'm furious about because that's my job to leak all these decks. But anyway, a data point that hasn't necessarily been as well covered, I don't think. I'm not sure whether it's fully out there, is that 30% of US TikTok users say that TikTok has replaced their watching of traditional TV or Netflix or other video services now. So they're absolutely coming for these different platforms and these different, you know, media and entertainment hubs. And if you go from 11 to 13 seconds to 20 seconds in a year, like Douyin has a maximum video length of 15 minutes. So like you can see where this is going. Like TikTok runs on like a several months delay from Douyin. So we're getting longer form video, I think.
Which is interesting to me because I feel like the reason that people spend a movie's length of time on TikTok is because the videos are shorter. Because it's so much easier to say, I'm just going to watch one more video when you know it's going to be less than a minute versus when I just finish a 20-minute YouTube video and I'm going to go to one and I go 17 minutes, a little too long, I should probably go. But because TikTok's just one more video and I know it's going to be short, I will do that for another 15, 20 minutes just because I'm not thinking about it. But with YouTube and knowing it's longer videos, I'll jump off sooner because it is longer video. So I'm interested. It's interesting to me that they're making these changes.
Yeah, and I'm also fascinated on, you know, that and another point, which is part of the reason that TikTok has become so popular isn't just that one more thing. It's also their algorithm is so much better tuned to you than everybody else's. And part of the reason is that you are throwing so much data at them over the course of, say, an hour. Like, you know, you can watch like what 240 videos potentially or more in an hour compared to like you get bogged down in a, as you say, like a 17-minute YouTube video or like, God help you, like a, you know, a feature length movie style, you know, story time or something like that. Like that's not a lot of data on you. And so I asked TikTok's algorithm team just before they were rolling out the 3 minute thing. I managed to get some time with them on a round table panel discussion, and I was like, so how does this affect like your inputs into the algorithm. And they were like, oh, we've got it figured out, don't worry. They didn't tell me any more than that, but like they were like, we've sorted that. So they don't seem to think of that as like a value reducer to them, which makes me think that, maybe it's not.
It's kind of speaking of the algorithm, because obviously, to your point, that is the ticket for TikTok is just how good it is. What was the algorithm like pre-acquisition of Musically? Because I listened to a couple interviews with Alex Zhu, and he's basically describing the TikTok algorithm beat for beat in an interview from like 2015. So did he heavily influence that algorithm post acquisition of Musically, or was TikTok already doing that before?
So TikTok, through like Douyin, was doing that before, because there is essentially, obviously there are differences, but like the AI aspect is essentially like a plug and play largely thing across all ByteDance products. And so the thing that people again forget about, you know, TikTok's overnight success is that it actually stems from Toutiao in like 2012, which is like a Chinese news aggregator style app, which trained a load of trained a load of ByteDance's AI in terms of like, how do you serve content to users that will keep them engaged, and how do you identify what they're interested in, things like that. So, um, you know, obviously, I guess TikTok got a lot from Musically, but I guess at very, very broad brushstrokes, the kind of idea is that it seemed that like Musically had the ability to find and interact with a user base, and TikTok kind of brought the engineering AI side. There was in the book I talked to a guy who was involved in Flipagram, which ByteDance bought, which is again one of those other like there, but for the grace of God, alternative universe, Back to the Future style. If you kill your mother or your father or whatever, like what happens? Things. And this guy from Flipagram was saying like he sat down with Yiming Zhang like when the company was bought, and Yiming was like, "Oh, this is great because like you have the like ability to produce really good video through like editing and stuff, and you have the music element sorted, and Musically has all of these features, and we have the amazing algorithm to power it. So like, let's just put all this together, and it's kind of like nuclear fission or whatever, isn't it? You get something incredible out of it.
One thing you said there when it came to Musically is their ability to manage the creators and things like that. Another thing kind of I listened to in this Alex Zhu interview, I listened to two. There's one he did with TechCrunch, and I can't remember who the other one was, but there was like a half-hour interview keynote he did, or fireside chat, I should say. And he was talking about how what they did with Musically is they almost like he didn't fully come out and say it, but he kind of alluded to the fact that they manufactured the top creators on the platform. And they did that to try and not manufacture, but gave them the extra reach, helped them grow, because you need examples of people who have come to Musically that weren't previously famous and became popular on that platform to attract new users. You kind of talked about it like when you're kind of like when people migrated over to North America in 17, 1800s, is you needed those success stories of people who weren't previously famous in order to attract more people to the new land. I thought it was really interesting, kind of their approach to growing the platform was heavily creator based in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think this is what is so fascinating about like, absolutely this is an overnight success, but it is also worth pointing out that like the two predecessor apps and several of the other like predecessor apps that kind of like mixed into this family tree that created TikTok, they are far more conscious of like learning from the mistakes of their predecessors than you think. Like they, you know, for instance, in the book, I talk about how like they wined and dined former Vine staffers to learn what went wrong with Vine in order to not replicate the mistakes. And I remember having conversations with TikTok PR in like early 2019 where they were kind of like, so what are the pinch points for YouTube creators? Like when you speak to YouTube creators, like they're constantly looking for more data on what did other people do wrong so that we avoid falling into those pitfalls? And like, it is really interesting, and that Alex Yu interview is kind of emblematic of it. Is that they're thinking of this not just as like an app that we bring people to. Like he thinks of it as like a population level thing, as if it's a country. Like, how do I ensure that we have a wealthy middle class? How do I ensure that there is progression up that social ladder? You know, in the sense of not social media, but in the sense of like society. And I think that's, you know, you underestimate these folks at your peril because they've really carefully studied all of this stuff. Like when they were developing Douyin, like they brought in like 100 different competitor apps, and they went like, don't like that feature, do like this feature, so let's have that in here. Don't like that, and they kind of picked all the bits that they liked to almost guarantee engineered success.
No, and to your point too, when you talk about how when they took Flipgram Musically and Dewey and they kind of put them all together, that also helps them circumvent the issue that Vine had. Because Vine, essentially, from my understanding, at the end there, they kind of were held captive by the top creators on the platform, and you can't really do that on TikTok. Because if you try and kind of hold TikTok captive, they'll just say, "Well, that's fine. We'll just have a new. Well, our algorithm will find new creators for us by the end of the week that can replace you." So it's just interesting to see all of the, to your point, all of the little things that are kind of just adding up that have helped build a moat for TikTok, essentially.
Yeah, and there's things like when you look at um, the kind of adjunct ecosystem that evolves around like a YouTube, and like the existence of MCNs in the early days of YouTube, and like talent managers, and like just people offering services, like even down to like, let me design your thumbnails for you. Like all of that stuff is lost money if you think about it for YouTube. And what's really interesting is TikTok through like the creator marketplace or the creator fund. Like everything is designed to be vertically integrated there. Like, you know, if you want to edit your YouTube videos, you go to like Premiere Pro or you go to Final Cut or something like that. If you want to edit your TikTok videos outside of the TikTok app, you're probably opening CapCut, which is owned by ByteDance. Like all of these things are designed to keep you in this bubble, which I think is really fascinating because they've kind of realized that if you control all of the ecosystem, you control all of the power, and your way goes. It's your way or the highway.
Yeah, and aren't isn't so is ByteDance working on additional apps on top of TikTok as well?
Well, so they have their like video editing app, which is CapCut, which had a name before this, and I can't remember what it is. But it's basic. I mean, it's you can use it just to edit any video, but it's often used by some creators. Yeah, I mean they have other apps that are around and about. Like they don't necessarily all integrate into TikTok, but like they have Hello, they have Lark, which is kind of like a productivity app. So they're much broader than you think, and they're white labeling their algorithm. Like this is the other thing that's really interesting. They have a company in China called Volcano Engine, and in the West called Byte Plus, which I broke news about in March when they were hiring their first staff, and then the Financial Times decided to re-break the news like in June, which I found really hilarious. But anyway, like you can buy, it's probably a cut down version, but it's still a version of like the algorithm that powers TikTok and powers Douyin and powers Toutiao, and you can plug it into your app if you want. So they're thinking always of ways to make money, which is kind of why they're so successful, I suppose.
True. And one thing too, I saw that they were releasing a club, or they're working on a Clubhouse like app. And I think what's interesting about them versus every other one that's tried to duplicate Clubhouse is they're making a separate app for it versus it's going to be integrated in Facebook, it's integrated in Twitter and Spotify, but they're keeping it separate, which I think is interesting because all these other apps now are having the problem of they're almost too cluttered because they're trying to shove too many features into it. So they're even being different from that respect by building a separate app for Clubhouse as opposed to integrating it into TikTok.
Yeah, it's just avoiding the Facebook issue of like, what is Facebook for? Like even now, like what is Instagram for? When Instagram came out recently and said we're a video app now, and all of these people who have spent years of their life posting photographs there were like, what, why? I come here for the photos. Like, this is, I do photos on here. Why are you making me do videos and won't push me through the algorithm if I don't do videos?
And I think what TikTok's advantage versus Instagram advantage in this case, I mean, there's many things, but Instagram started as a social network, and I wouldn't describe TikTok as a social network. I would almost describe them as a content network. You know what I mean? Especially with the way their algorithm works, where you don't follow people that are within your literal social network. Like, it's people you don't know. So I'd look at it as a content network versus a social network. And so Instagram now has to try and convert from a social network to a content network, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and TikTok are very explicit about this. Like, they, particularly recently, they start to push back a lot against being pigeonholed as a social network. Like, personally, I still think it is, and I think that there are elements of it. But you're right, absolutely, in that it is that content graph rather than that social graph that serves you a lot of the content. But they kind of get very persnickety, and they're like, "No, we are an entertainment platform. We are not a social network." And I'm like, "Okay, sure. Like, that's your latest branding exercise. That's fine if you want to do that."